Hi everybody, it's Don and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Well, I had a question for Carnival Cruise Line's brand ambassador John Heald after the experience that the Carnival cruise ship had when it had to leave port early. And I had a really, what I thought, a good question, and I hoped he would get back to me. Well, as John normally does, because that's basically his job, is answering emails all day, he got back to me. So let's set up the premise of what happened and what my question was. So first off, we had the Carnival Magic was in port in Grand Turk, and they decided, oh, the weather is worsening and we have to leave early because Hurricane Ernesto was approaching a little faster and a little wider than the scheduled path that it was supposed to go on. We don't want to be in the rough seas and get stuck. We have to leave early. So they decided they had to leave about an hour and a half earlier than scheduled in Grand Turk. So they sent out all those messages. They sent out text messages, they sent out phone messages, they sent out emails, they contacted the cruise port directors, the port authorities, they contacted the local radio station, they contacted the local representatives that sent it to places like shops and places where they would announce on the speaker, hey, your ship will be leaving early, be back to the port by this time, etc. It all went out, and passengers all got the message. They all made it back to shore, to the ship, and the ship left safely ahead of schedule. So my question to John was, so I sent him on his Facebook page, like everyone else does. I don't have a direct connection with John that I can contact him. But I said, hey, John, it's great to hear everyone made it back to the ship in Grand Turk before she had to leave early. Here's my question. So, if passengers did not make it back, would the ship have waited? If weather forced them to leave as it can, would Carnival have gotten them to the ship? And who would pick up the costs? Would Carnival have picked up the costs? Or would it be, their insurance that would have to pick up this cost? And that was my question. Because the ship did leave early. It was an unplanned, they announced, hey, we're leaving at 4 o'clock, and all of a sudden you get back to the ship and the ship left at 2:30. And you're there at 3:30, and you're going, hey, I'm here in plenty of time. What's going on? And my ship's gone. So I was curious to see, would Carnival cover that whole process of getting them to the ship if they had to leave, or would the ship have just waited for them? Now, obviously, if it's going to endanger the ship at all, they would not wait. They would leave. They would have to leave. You're not going to endanger 2,300 passengers and 1,000 crew members for 3 people who didn't make it back to the ship on time. So John said yes, we would have done. But as I said earlier to someone, this is a very rare occurrence. I agree, very rare occurrence, and it's not something that happens very often at all. We use text alert, we use the ship's horn, we used contact with the excursion people, and everybody made it back on board, and it wasn't a huge time difference, just an hour and a half. But if somebody had not made it back on board, then of course, yes, we would have taken great care of them. Thank you. Which is what I would expect. And I would expect that from pretty much every cruise line out there. I would hope the cruise lines would realize that, hey, we are the ones who are saying we have to leave early. That way, we will pick up the responsibility to get these folks to the next port. Because it can be a big hassle, and it's not as simple as, well, we're going to put them on a flight and go from here to here, and they can join the ship there. Some of the ports do not allow passengers to board cruise ships. So that can be a thing. That happens in Alaska a lot, where you cannot board at certain areas. You can only visit. You cannot embark and disembark. There's no customs office and things like that at some places. So you can't do it. So it's not always as simple as just going to the next, getting a flight and going to the next area. Not only that, now you have hotels where you're out of pocket, flights that you're out of pocket if you had to pay for all this yourself. And what happens if, in some cases, like a closed loop trip, you didn't have a passport and now you need to go from one country to another and you don't have a passport? Well, now you might have to fly home and miss the cruise altogether. Would then the cruise line perhaps refund your money? That question could also come up, I guess, that I didn't ask. But it's good to know that if this situation happens to you on your cruise, that Carnival says that they will look after you. At least out of the words of John Heald, their brand ambassador. And I trust he pretty well knows what he's talking about in these situations. He's not just going off the cuff. So yeah, there's a lot that can happen, right? If you didn't get back to the ship, there's a lot of the bells and whistles that has to be, and rigmarole you have to work through to possibly get back to the ship. And it could be more stressful than you think. And more things can get in your way than you think because there are so much red tape out there for a lot of situations. And that's one of those reasons people always go to me when I say, get a passport. I mean, my passport for 10 years cost me $245 Canadian for 10 years. And it's, I can now go everywhere I want to go, not just closed loop cruises, etc. I can go anywhere I want to go in the world that, that accepts my passport. And people say, well, I don't need to pay. That's $245 I don't need to pay. I don't need to pay that. I can just use my birth certificate and driver's license. Yes. But if something happens and you're stuck in a foreign port for any reason, medical reason, emergency, accident, ship leaves without you, etc., now you have a problem. Now it's a lot harder to get back. A lot harder. And it can cost you well over $245 to get this all figured out. In some countries, if you want an expedited passport from the embassy to get you back home from a foreign country, it can cost you $1,000 to get it within 3 or 4 days, plus the hotels, plus the flights, etc. And by the way, your insurance isn't going to cover that. Your insurance isn't going to cover you not having a passport. I get that question as well. Would that be part of my insurance then? Because it's part of my trip, because I needed the passport, shouldn't they cover it? No. Passports are not an expense for travel. It's a necessity sometimes, not an expense. So yeah, there you go. But great response from John Heald. Glad he got back to me, John. I appreciate your Facebook page tremendously. I wish all the cruise lines had a Facebook page like that and had an ambassador that would represent their cruise line as well as you are doing as well. Don't always agree, but that's the fun of it. So what do you think? Do you think that was a pretty good response from Carnival Cruise Lines? I think so. Let me know in the comments down below, and until next time, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Want to see more tips, more tricks, more travel vlogs from around the world? Hit that subscribe button. Until next time, have yourself a safe and a great vacation.